Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good. You got some new glasses, Diane.
Yeah, the other ones weren't cutting it anymore. I have to keep going up.
All right, she's upgraded.
Yeah.
And Rob was the first one here.
I'm always excited for you guys are awesome. I love you guys.
Oh,
That's
thank
great.
you.
I've been watching you for years and it's awesome to be hanging out with Jetson
Well,
and Nancy.
Well,
you
we're really glad you're here, Rob.
and
Thank you so much.
you are a welcome and marvelous addition.
Yeah. Well, actually, all you guys are good additions to
Yes.
this Q&A because you always, all of you, without exception, you all got really good questions, good comments, and are able to take the conversation to the next level. And that's what we were kind of hoping for when we decided to start this little project.
Oh, hey,
You guys are doing great. Oh, who's this?
this is the guy that's coming with me, I guess. I
There you
mean,
go.
come on, buddy. All right.
Aw,
What race is that
welcome. He
thing?
wants to be part of it.
He's a Belgian Malinois.
Oh, yeah.
He's a handful.
Yeah.
That's the special dog you were talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's special, all right.
Ah,
But in a good way, in a good way. Yeah, the dog calms, right?
you bet.
Here it comes all over the place.
We'll just let people think that that's what we're doing. Dog.
Mascot.
Okay.
Well, let's go. Let's get started. Who's got a question or a comment to start with?
I sort of have a question about the sun and the sun simulator.
Excellent.
I mean, because you know you've shown some amazing proof of things, right? But you've also shown fleets coming in from the sun, and so I'm kind of curious. Well, are they coming from the sun or the sun simulator? That's my first kind of question.
All right.
And then also too, I'm watching a couple of other channels where they're actually showing CMEs blasting off the sun. We just had a major one um, a few days ago, and I personally, and this has been going on for a few years now, ever since my what I call my awakening. Um, I've become highly sensitive, and what I mean by that is when there are some days where I come down with severe migraines and I'm laid out all day long. And then when the sun sets, it doesn't matter if I take Tylenol, it doesn't matter. But when the sun sets, I start to feel relief. The migraines go away. I do my research and I always find that there was some sort of major solar activity. So if that's the case where I'm personally feeling these high energies, but yet we have a fake sun, I'm kind of confused.
Okay.
Yeah, what's with that?
All right. So the first question was, are the intergalactic fleets coming from the sun?
Yeah, because you've shown the the stills,
Right.
right? Yeah.
All right. Well, what they're doing, that area is a place called the Sun Gate, and it's being monitored by the large binocular telescope that's owned by the Vatican and run by Jesuits, astronomers who pretty much have a monopoly on all things space as far as what's what. They are coming in through the Sun Gate, which is it's like a, a, a portal that was built into this system when God made it. And as I've mentioned before, if you're not invited, you can get in, but it will disable your vehicle and you won't be able to leave. So, but if you are invited, which is the case with these intergalactic fleets, then you just come right through. And what we're seeing with these fleets is they're coming in through that area, and they're also kind of flying around in that area at times too. So there's two main views with those LBT images that are distributed through these NASA websites. And one is called High One, and it's where you see it should be like this. They're showing you these poles with bright balls on them, and these poles are going across the screen. Sometimes they're going this way, sometimes they're going that way. But that's like the stars and the planets. And actually up in the sky, it's not like this, it's like this. So you've got this big long pole that stretches all the way across the dome. And there's like, gears or whatever on the ends where it's attached. And it makes all the stars do the same thing all the time. But the planets, the wandering stars, they have different orbits that can do different things. They have different, they're on different poles, in other words.
When we see the fleets coming in, you're saying that's basically a Stargate, or
It's
you call it I'm sorry, a Sun Gate.
Sun Gate. It's just
Yeah.
it's just part of this realm, built as part of the realm. And
So it's inside the dome, is what you're saying.
God created it. It's the only way to get in or out of the dome.
So that's not the simulator itself, or it is?
No, the simulator is in a strange place. Wherever the ISS is, that's where the simulator is operating. Because if you watch, I watched like over 100 hours of live streams in 2018, and ISS, International Space Station live streams. And I even listened to what they were saying to each other. They talk to each other wherever they are. And every once in a while you'll hear them say, okay, we're getting ready for an event. And an event has something to do with that Sim-Sun. So
Okay.
the Sim-Sun is not part of the original creation. It's run by the enemy. Enemy people run that. NASA runs the Sim-Sun. And so the Sun Gate is something completely different, but they're both up there. We got the Orrery, we got the Sim-Sun, two different. God created the Orrery technology. God created a crystal sun that was covered up by a grill of fire in order to make this place more comfortable for the reptilians. And then when the sun ascended, the crystal sun ascended, the grill was taken down and the Sim-Sun was put into place. Has nothing to do with the Sun Gate, though. Both on the high one view, which is usually blue, and the core 2, which is usually red, depending on some of them have different color, but usually red for the core 2, which is the big circle with the black donut in the middle. And then high 1 is just the blue with the poles going by with the white balls on them.
And what is that? That's the orrery you're talking about?
Those are
Oh, okay.
images of the orrery.
Okay.
And, now we see from the high 1 cams, we can see a lot of activity, like flashing, lights and stuff. And sometimes big smoke rings will come out of there. The core 2, the big circle with the black donut in the middle, in the center there, you always see, light kind of jutting out from there. So it must be because they're covering up that Sun Gate that there is some type of something coming in to this system from up there.
Okay. Now, what's the version I see that looks like that some people are showing on YouTube that looks like a big fireball, and it'll show the coronal holes, it'll show CMEs blasting off the side.
Yep.
And those when I see that stuff, I don't know if it can't be a coincidence, because I literally am all day in bed with a migraine. It just happened a couple of days ago. I think it was Saturday. And there was major solar activity, is what they were saying. And this seems to be a running theme whenever I come down with these migraines every so often. I do my research and I find out there's high solar activity.
On those NASA sites, they also have a view called the EUV. It's either EUVI or EUV1, but they have several colors and different contrasts and stuff. They have like a red one and a blue one and a yellow one. Okay, so you can go out there and look at those. And in my opinion, and they have like big flat things coming off of them and sunspots and all that. But in my opinion, that is all done by NASA and it's all CGI.
Yeah, let's go to Diane.
Okay. Hi, Diane.
I went back and I reviewed some stuff, and because I took it in order, it's like, oh my gosh, I see what you mean by the orrery. All of a sudden I saw the lines. I thought they were just, artifact on. I'm like, holy cow, I can see the lines. And I'm interested in the whole idea of soul trap. And from what I understand, because a lot of people go back and forth about reincarnation. So that makes, especially from a biblical standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. If we were not meant to reincarnate, we weren't meant to be trapped. We weren't meant to, recycle here. So maybe that's the word you more use.
The invaders who came in, they were at least 1,000 years more advanced technologically than the system they were coming into. And they used magnetism to like, think of a Merkaba. You've got two 3D objects that you've got a tetrahedron, which is actually a four-sided
Right.
object. And then you've got one upside down and one right side up, and they're like spinning separate ways together. That is a form of energy, that we call a Merkaba, but the charge of that object is neutral. In other words, there's no magnetic field, there's no highly charged, highly polarized, anything. What they did with this magnetism, though, they were able to pull the original system energetics apart, like pull that Merkaba apart and put the two bases together. And so when at that point, you've got a different geometric shape. And what it did is it just made everything just exactly highly polarized. And that's why we have such high polarized things and dualism here. And actually, dualism is that idea that we've mentioned before. If you have black, you have to have white. If you have good, you have to have evil, that kind of thing. So that, whatever they did, they were able to use that to get souls as they were exiting the body with this fake, they lure them in with this fake tunnel with the light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh.
And they think they're going to heaven when in fact they're just going into their next incarnation.
Interesting. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense from a polarization standpoint when you talk about that, because that is one of the things that ends up happening with religious doctrine. Okay. And when you think about that, it's like, oh no, and this very subject. Well, if you believe the Bible, then you don't believe in reincarnation.
Right. It is appointed man wants to die, and after that judgment is what the Bible says. Yes.
Right. And that's the way it was set up to be, but then someone interfered with it.
Right.
And certainly we've seen that evil can have its way and its day. But it doesn't win in the end is the point. But that makes a lot of sense. That really does. That really does. I thank you for that.
Cool. Great.
The Vatican, its involvement in this, and it sounds like, I don't know how to say it. I guess what I'm saying is, are they more the good guys? Are they more those are in line with those who basically hijack the system, or because we know there's a lot of corruption in the Vatican. But that there's a lot of corruption in everything. So it doesn't mean everybody in it, is doing that agenda. So I'd be interested in what you're willing to or able to share about that too.
Right. I wish I could share what we actually know, but the Vatican and the Holy See are pure, pure.
Yeah, that's would be my take normally. Yeah.
And their role is to protect something that I'm not going to say what it is. That's why they're watching so closely, and
got it.
They have that's why they are the what's the right word? They oversee the Holy See. They oversee what everybody can know about what they call the solar system or
Uh-huh.
this system. Wait, do you have a question?
Yeah, go back to Rob's headache. I wonder what the dome is made of. Could the energy from outside be leaking in? What other people are measuring, if they are measuring?
Good point. That's another thing that I feel like is happening. Like we've talked about this before, that there's energies that are available through heavenly gates at certain times, and I call that torsion field energy. What Juan calls the other physics, which is the 19.5. It's part of that Merkaba thing, right? Right, where those points fit in the circle, they touch the circle. That's the 19.5. We're talking about the original energy of it's up there in the heavenly realm. That's their energy. That's their energetics. It's the Merkaba. But so you're saying could some of that be seeping in? It's not seeping in necessarily, but I think it can. I mean, because the dome is just impenetrable. You know, you're not going to bust through it, not even with Elon Musk's boring machine.
But leading to the dome, and you said it's impenetrable.
Mhm.
And if nobody else is, if I'm sure if Wei was finished, but I was wanting to piggyback off that. Wei, did you have any more questions?
That's fine. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Because you also mentioned Wano Savin, because I remember in one of his interviews, he spoke, I think he might have been speaking to Right Side Blonde. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The point is, he explained that there was once a time, well, he did basically say that there's a dome, but he said that it was sealed and he explained that there was an experiment where scientists sealed an environment, put plant life in there, and in that sealed environment, the plants grew bigger and like they grew giant, right? And so we have evidence of giants here on Earth. We have
And giant trees.
giant trees, right? So that's what he's saying. He's saying at one time that we were in a sealed environment and that humans were bigger than we are now. They were able to run great distances because there was no lack of oxygen. The trees were massive. The fungi, there's even fungi. Paul Stamets has shown fossils of these giant, well, they're not really mushrooms, but they're fungi and they're just massive, giant, they're fossils. And we also, like I said, we've seen the trees, we've seen evidence of animals and all these different things. So he was saying at one point that we were in a sealed environment. I've heard once tell this story, but at the same time, you're saying, then he said that there was a crack that actually somehow it did get penetrated, and that's why things have kind of shrunken down and why we are the size that we are now and we're experiencing everything we're going through.
I think that's
So-
one way of avoiding the DNA manipulation thing with the Anunnaki, because they knew how to manipulate DNA, and they actually dumbed the DNA of the human species down.
And that's been proven that there's been a splice in our DNA, like scientifically. They're like, they have found the splice in our DNA and they're saying that something intervened to do that, right?
Oh,
That has been proven scientifically.
I
Greg
heard
Braden
that.
talks about this.
Mhm.
He says we see the splice, we see where it was spliced, and he says there's no explanation for it other than something or somebody, or like you're saying, Anunnaki went in there and made that splice.
Wow.
Like that is proven. That is by Greg Braden, and it's a scientific fact. So that goes along with what you're saying and what I've also come to learn
Okay.
as well. But I'm not meaning to cut you off, please.
No. We're connecting
You were
some dots
you were
here.
you were saying that it's his way of explaining the DNA being spliced and dumbed down.
For some reason, depending on who he's talking with, he will not mention anything from outside of this system. But then you get him on with Rachel Right Side Blonde, and he's talking about aliens from outer space coming into this system and invading it. And,
Giants. Yeah. I've heard
and I
him
was
talk about the
able
giants.
to, yeah, I was able to put that into some of my videos because it was like, oh my gosh, this is the exact story, you know, that I've been given. And it's even the same, talking about Sirius, you know, the Sirius star system. And I'm like, no way, no way. Go ahead, Wade. Did you have some more?
Yeah, about the vibrational state we're going to be when we
Right.
move to New West.
Yes.
You mentioned it's not ascension. It's just like start over on Earth without all the holding back. And I just wonder when we start at New West, will be more heart-centered, collaborative with others, no more mind programming and all that going on. I was
Yeah.
hoping we'll be
Right.
more elevated in our vibrational state. Otherwise, it'd be not so exciting. You know, we still
Right.
have to
Right.
start over like
Well, good. That's perfect segue because one of the other things that was done to the human race was to move the seat of the soul. The seat of the soul is resides in the ego mind, but they put the ego mind in the driver's seat. Somehow they manipulated things to where the ego mind became the main, it's like the go-to place when a human is trying to live their life. They're living it from the ego mind, which that's what they program constantly. You know, it's like we were just talking about this. It's like this system is set up with three main motivators. The first one is that three-letter word that everybody's programmed to think about constantly. Okay, I don't even like to say it. It starts with an S and ends with an X. All right, so everything is focused on that. All right, so then they tell you, okay, the only way to have power in this system is to have lots of money, which they, you know, if you're not in their club, you're never going to make unless you're Donald Trump and you're really, really smart because he is. We've been watching The Apprentice. They just put it out on Amazon. So he's like so smart, you know. But so it's like, well, in order to get the three-letter word, you've got to have power. And in order to get power, you've got to have money. So those three things, you know, that bag that they always show in the
Anunnaki.
all the glyphs on the rocks and stuff with those beings that have the bag, the handbag.
Yeah.
That is a symbol that stands for power of the purse. And that
Oh.
means that the reptilian hybrids are the ones who control all the money in this system up until now, up until Doge.
Yeah, right.
So we're flipping that on them, see, with this Doge thing. Oh man, they are going to get like a hornet's nest. They changed the ego, where the ego is. That will be put back in its normal place, which is in the back, in the baby seat, strapped in. So your ego, you're not going to be operating from your ego mind. You're going to be operating from your spirit and your heart. Not the heart that you're taught. Here, the heart is taught one thing: love. I'm in love, and go where your heart wants you to go.
Sexual love.
Yes, exactly.
I said it.
Oops.
Right.
We got to bleep that out, Nancy.
It's not my fault.
Keep it.
That's right.
Fortunately, we have a good editor.
We got to see the funny side of you. I love it when you do that cookie show and all the other silly show.
Oh yeah, the cookie thing. Yeah, that was fun.
All the other spiritual teachings or channelers talk about we're going to live in 5D, we're going to ascend, and our body will be lighter, our food will be less dense, and we'll live, in the brighter, lighter existence. But if we're not achieving that, that means
that was the original plan. And there was going to be real physical ascension from 3D to 5D because people were going to be able to achieve that on their own because
Oh, so we never had that
they weren't
naturally.
manipulated. So
Right.
once these people get out of those light chambers after 3 days of riding in that Stargate and they get out of those light chambers, it's going to be a level playing field across the board. Everybody's going to be at the exact same place, spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, set at like an optimal setting, right?
Right, level playing field.
And so from there, you'll have a choice. It'll be a 3/5D system.
Okay.
In other words, they'll be on the original path that humanity was created to go through, to evolve the species, to evolve the
Right.
race. And so those who want to be more in 5D will make choices that put them on that higher frequency and keep them there. So it'll be a mix.
I think
That's very good to know because I feel like I'm already there at 5D. I don't want to go backward. And what about our DNA?
Okay, just that.
I was just gonna say, those who choose to stay in 3D are those who haven't quit playing in the game. So if they're still oriented toward a lot of the same kinds of ideas and things
Right.
that we currently experience, and they want to continue some level of that, they'll stay in 3D.
But without the control mechanism, they can still naturally advance without being held back.
Yeah.
Right. And they will, I
Mind.
think their timeline will be rapid, not only the build out, but the ascension, because they will actually be getting to ascend. They'll have a space program right away, like we mentioned last week, because they have to guard that sun gate. And then as soon as they get, as soon as they're ready, they will go out and start looking for a suitable next home. And it's not like they're just blindly doing it. They'll have access to communicating with the heavenly realm whenever they need to, for those who are more on the 5D plane. So they'll know what they're doing and where to go, and these initiatory realms are just that. They're not meant to be lived on forever and ever and ever. They have a lifespan.
Right. How about our DNA? Others talk about the solar flash will upgrade us to a more strand of DNA where God originally designed us. Does that still happen if we are in the New West?
I guess that's a possibility because we are seeing that we can be affected from what's going on outside of the dome. So, I mean, even if it's not coming through the dome, we do see in those images that there's something very bright and very glowy, and fiery and that's coming out from that sun gate area. We've got this gate thing, and there's energy that is coming into this system. So it's affecting us in the ways that it can, because people here are just literally dumbed down in their DNA. Their egos, in the seat of the soul's been switched, and they've just programmed the ability to do anything but pretty much stay where they're at. But some few can figure out it'd be like, if you're a monk and you're saying, okay, man, all I want to do is be communicate with God 24/7. So they devote their entire life to that endeavor, and so people can do that in their everyday lives too. They can use their life as a training tool once they get to a state in their mind, because we're starting to get more truth. We're starting to get more whatever Tesla's doing to the Schumann resonance. I think that is a big, big assist for people to try to get more past the 3D limits.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as 4D, by the way, when you're ascending. You would go from 3 to 5. But
Transitional
just
state.
remember though, there's the first and second rule of charge mastery. You can't get from 3D to 5D unless you go to neutral first. You got to go to neutral. So that's why it's so important to figure out how to manage your thoughts and your emotions. And if you can figure out how to do that, then you're going to be able to go to neutral. And once you get to neutral, you'll be much more likely to be able to make a bump up in frequency.
That's what I need to hear more about your diagram of 3 and 6 and 9, right? You have to get to the neutral to reach the 9. That I always need to wrap my mind around.
Right.
How did you come up with that kind of diagram?
Right. Well, Tesla made that comment. He said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, he says, look at the 369. And so I thought about it, and then I started receiving information about it, and that's how those charts were developed.
Yeah.
And plus, I was experiencing that in my own life, that when I was able to neutralize my thoughts and emotions, see, because your emotions are created by your thoughts. If you can manage your thoughts and not let them go down that dark path, if you can, the best way to do it, really, guys, whether you're a Christian or not, is to be grateful for what you've got.
Yeah.
If you can shift your, here we're so dense, that when we start going down, when we let anger basically get hold of us, even when you catch it right away, once you're in it, once you feel it, once you allow it to rise up, it's hard to get it down. It's hard to neutralize it.
Yeah, I like that saying, everything happened for us, not to us. That immediately shifted my elevation, my vibrational state.
Can you give a little bit more explanation on that way? Everything happens for us, not
For
for
example, we took a trip to Colorado. We want to soak in the hot springs. And then the car breaks down going in and car breaks down coming out. But during the car breaks down, the people we're dealing with, the roadside little church that we go in, and all these just uplift me so much. If the car didn't break down, I wouldn't have experienced all these nice things. That just make me feel, yeah, everything happened for us, not to us.
Oh, okay. Two. I thought you said through. THRLUG. You're saying
Yeah.
two. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, right. So it's just amazing when you shift the way you are talking to yourself.
Right. And you completely get rid of the why me.
Right. You know,
By the way, I did just drop the link for the 369 Charge Mastery playlist in
Yeah.
the chat box in case anybody wants to
I will.
revisit, and take.
you have a very good playlist on your YouTube, so we can find it. But some of the things you say it's not there anymore, I still couldn't find it on Rumble,
Okay.
like that Master in Disguise.
Well,
about
it's out there.
Yeah.
And what was that link for, Jetson?
Master of Disguise.
Okay, yeah, that one's not on YouTube, right?
No, they
That
took
one has to be on Rumble.
it. Yeah, it's on Rumble. And she said she looked for it and couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Diane.
I'll mention these things out of courtesy of time because I know you've got other things to get to. But there were so many things, so much is happening so fast now. And I'm sure that's part of this. And it seems like time is speeding up on top of it.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah. I'm going to mention a bunch of things, just maybe for everybody else's, either input if they want to say something or whatever, or to go look into. And the very first one is the one that I'd ask you if you have a moment to give a little more information about. And by the way, I thank you so much for the discussion of the car seat and the driver's seat. That makes perfect sense about the the echo mind, and Way, what you were saying as well, because, and also you, Rob, when you were talking about, what is that but a description of the lizard brain that people talk
Right,
about?
the reptilian brain. That's
Yeah,
what they call it.
and
Exactly.
so those things are creeping through. Truth has a way of bubbling up. Anyway, okay. So the first thing is, it happened 3 weeks ago, but I didn't find anything I could really say I would trust. But last night I saw, and I think I sent you in a comment the video about it, and the pyramid discovery, way down, 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 as if they could get that far, and like it happened overnight. At the same time, they're doing a world tour, which I found that kind of interesting too. That Dr. Remy, I think he is. I'm not sure if I have that name right. So that's the one I want you to comment on.
The Giza scan thing, Nazi is going to put a link in the chat with about that
Okay.
tells my stance on that. So just to
Okay.
make it short, because we are running out of time, I'll just say that
Good. Perfect.
I'm dubious about the
This one, right?
yes, yeah, number 153. Yeah.
Yeah.
I myself am dubious about their interpretation of the scats. Okay, because he's
Yep.
saying that there are known objects inside the Giza pyramid that everybody knows. There's the Grand Gallery, there's the King's Chamber, there's the
Right.
big giant thing that I know is an oscillator. But when the scans are shown, those objects aren't there. So it's like, why aren't those objects there? They're showing us, here's what's inside
Right.
the pyramid and here's what's beneath it. But inside the pyramid part is where there's a lot of missing stuff that should be there. Okay, so that's what this video is about. And this chap is very credible.
Also, now the CIA has come out and admitted, or they've declassed Ark of the Covenant, that the CIA knew all along where the Ark of the Covenant was. And if you remember, Donald Trump, and is it, what's his, Dan Scavino, I think it was, maybe not.
Yeah.
It was a picture of one of them standing next to Donald Trump's Ark of the Covenant. And at the time, I thought, that's the real thing. My soul says that's the real thing. And, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and I said to a couple people, wouldn't that be amazing if they're hiding it in plain sight? Oh, he's so rich, he's got a copy of the Ark of the Covenant. Maybe, who knows? But I found that interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you it's not the real thing, because the real thing has two angels not up on the top. Like
they're in a different position.
That's a replica of the one that was in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right. Okay. And I still think, of course, because of what we know, that that was a comm. And definitely want to hear more if you have more to say about that.
The real Ark of the Covenant was discovered, and there's videos on my channel. It's like proof that the Bible is true. Something like that is the name of the playlist. And it's got two videos out there about Ron Wyatt, who was a biblical archaeologist.
I know that one. Yeah.
And he actually found the Ark of the Covenant, and it's now still in Jeremiah's grotto in somewhere in, it's right beneath where Jesus was crucified.
But later videos with his wife, I think it was, and stuff claimed that it's been stolen, or it's been taken out, or it's been moved.
No, that's not true.
Okay, because the Jewish people, or the powers that be there, suddenly cut them off from everything, supposedly, and they couldn't get access anymore. And I want to hear what you have to say, because I don't understand the Thoth and all that. I don't understand how that plays in, and how that is not necessarily at odds with our Christian theology. I'm just interested in that.
When Juan first came on the scene, one of his big stories was about Isis and Osiris. And he was saying, this is what they believe. This is not what I believe. This is what they believe. And he told that horrible story about how, Osiris was chopped up and how evil they were, et cetera, et cetera. They actually were relatives of Thoth. They were Atlanteans. Atlantis was simply the first civilization in this realm. It was part of the heavenly realm in the lowest edge of the heavenly realm. It's, there's there's layers of heaven up there. We know the Bible mentions 3 layers. And so they lived in this lowest 5D realm, and they were much like the people in the New West would be, except for that they weren't like human. They were like a race that could present as like Toth with a ibis head, and a human body, or they could present just as a regular human. They could shapeshift their body to present as they wished, when they wished.
But they were like in an ascended type of 5D status.
5D beings, right. And then when the reptilians invaded, they infiltrated that. They were welcomed in because the people
Right.
that were so, good-hearted and everything.
Okay.
And they welcomed them in because, their planet has been destroyed, and it's not
Right.
their fault, of course, because they're liars. And so anyway, eventually it led to the fall of Atlantis.
Ah, okay. And that explains too, and that also says that people who are ascended and have a higher vibration, I don't want to say can be tricked, but I mean, in other words, we see that a lot right now, and we see that a lot right now with people thinking they're being compassionate towards situations when they're actually being used. So that is
Hence
something.
the 4 years of training.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Got
going to be as rigorous as like a West Point officer candidate training, but it's not just about military stuff. It's about,
Right.
okay, the truth about Earth now. Let's
Mhm.
let's train everybody to know this, to write it on their heart, and to be able to preserve it and pass it on.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
All right, cool. Great questions. My goodness.
Oh, really great question. Good conversation tonight. And we'll see you same time next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.